The fluorescent lights of the deserted fire station annex flickered with a cold, unforgiving rhythm, mirroring the icy dread settling in Michael Brown's gut. He was a man carved from 20 years of dedication, a decorated captain of the San Diego Fire Department. Yet in that sterile, uncarpeted room, he felt utterly hollow. His world, a life built on brass batten uniforms, the roar of the engine, and the sacred trust of his community, had been reduced to a 60-page internal affairs dossier and a single sheet of paper stamped asterisk indefinite suspension asterisk. He was 38 years old, too young to retire, too old to start over, and entirely too proud to admit the profound fear gripping him. Michael ran a hand through his closely cropped hair, the motion jerky with suppressed fury, and slammed his fist down on the cheap laminate desk. The echoing thud was a pathetic substitute for the adrenaline-fueled power he was used to commanding in a four-alarm blaze. The accusation, an impossibly fabricated tale of gross negligence during the massive downtown warehouse fire 3 weeks prior, had shredded his reputation faster than any inferno could have consumed structural steel. He was facing not only the termination of his career, but the forfeiture of his entire retirement, fund a projected loss of nearly $150,000 in accrued benefits. Every alarm bell in his professional life had been silenced. Every system he trusted had failed. The preliminary reports, subtly manipulated, painted him as reckless and incompetent, costing the city millions in unnecessary damage. He knew it was a lie, a carefully orchestrated move by someone higher up, looking to settle a score or carve a path for themselves. But in the cold, institutional reality of the annex, where he had been exiled to await his final disciplinary hearing, truth was irrelevant. Only paperwork mattered. Michael felt the familiar ache in his left shoulder, a lingering reminder of the heroic rescue he had performed that night, a rescue deliberately omitted from the official record. He was a ghost in the machine, and his empire of honor was dissolving in real time. The clock on the wall crept past 11 p.m. Michael had ordered everyone out hours ago. He couldn't bear the pitying glances, the whispers of doubt, or the forced attempts at encouragement. He wanted to be swallowed by the silence, to find some clarity in the suffocating emptiness of his exile. That's when he heard it. A soft, almost hesitant sound in the hallway, distinctly different from the heavy, patrolling steps of the night security guard. It was the gentle squeak of polyurethane wheels, followed by the quiet swoosh of a mop head hitting the linoleum. He lifted his gaze from the damning files. Through the narrow window of the annex door, he saw a figure moving slowly, methodically, between the rows of abandoned cubicles. It was a woman, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing the simple, pale blue uniform of the night cleaning crew. She was pushing a worn utility cart laden with supplies. Michael let out a long, weary sigh. He'd forgotten about the graveyard shift. Jennifer Miller, a name he dimly recalled seeing on an ID badge, stopped just outside the annex entrance. She glanced in and saw Hema, large man slumped at a small desk, his crisp white undershirt contrasting sharply with the pallor of his exhaustion. His tie was loose, hanging like a surrender flag, and his eyes, usually blazing with authority, were clouded with despair. Jennifer paused, her hand resting lightly on the mop handle. She hesitated for only a second, a fleeting moment of doubt, before she continued her work. Her movements were calm, unhurried, a stark contrast to the financial and emotional chaos that was devouring Michael. While his world was crashing, Jennifer continued to clean desks, oblivious to the fact that the man drowning in despair was once the city's most celebrated fire captain. When their eyes finally met through the glass, she stopped. Something in the sheer, raw defeat etched on his face made her take an uncharacteristic step closer. She tapped the glass softly with her knuckles, a gentle request for entry. Michael stared, confusion clouding his mind. A housekeeper? He was expecting a lawyer, a superior, maybe even an enemy, but never this quiet figure. He slowly nodded, gesturing her in. Jennifer pushed her cart a few feet away, out of the direct line of sight, and slipped into the room, closing the door behind her with care. "Excuse me, Captain," she said, her voice soft with a slight, almost musical Spanish accent that marked her words. "I don't mean to disturb you, but are you all right?" Michael offered a bitter, mirthless laugh. "Depends on your definition of all right, ma'am." She looked at him for a long, silent moment, then turned her attention to the scattered pages on his desk, the internal affairs reports, the redacted witness statements, the disciplinary note. "She didn't touch anything. Merely scanned the documents where the red ink of the Department S negative findings seemed to bleed across the paper. She asked, her tone shifting from a gentle inquiry to something sharper, more focused. Yes, my team and I followed protocol. We did everything right. But the reports say otherwise. The brass won't listen. Jennifer moved closer with a quiet confidence that surprised him. She showed no fear or surprise, only a clinical curiosity. Michael repeated, bewildered at what? At the reports. Michael felt a ridiculous, desperate laugh bubble up. A housekeeper offering to decipher the complex, politically charged legal minutiae of a major departmental investigation? For a moment, he thought the stress had finally broken him. Yet, there was an unwavering sincerity in her blue-gray eyes, a spark of intelligence he hadn't expected. That makes no sense, he admitted, shaking his head. My own union lawyer, one of the best in the city, couldn't make headway. Sometimes, those who are inside asterisk, are too close to see the locks clearly, she replied, her calm unwavering. Let me try. She was right. The worst had already happened. Michael slowly nodded and moved his chair aside, granting her access to the desk. Jennifer sat down with an astonishing ease, her fingers moving quickly over the pages, flipping through the 45-page official file, her gaze absorbing the dense legal jargon and the complex diagrams of the incident scene. She didn't hesitate. She didn't search for definitions. She wrote quick, almost invisible notes on a small pad she pulled from her uniform pocket. This is more serious than just negligence, she murmured, her brow furrowed in deep concentration. There's a clear discrepancy in the timestamp logs from the initial water deployment. In this section on the structural collapse, it's a direct contradiction of the city's own engineering standards. Michael blinked, the fatigue momentarily forgotten. How do you know all of this? The engineering codes, the reporting windows. She didn't look up, her concentration absolute. Before this, she said quietly, her voice losing its softness and gaining a professional edge, I was a legal analyst for a major investigative firm in Chicago. 8 years in corporate fraud and white-collar defense. I had to leave when my father fell ill. Michael found himself speechless. I'm sorry, he mumbled, thinking of her father. He passed 6 months ago. Jennifer responded, her eyes finally lifting to meet his. Her expression was serene, yet resolute. She returned to the files. You need to access the departmental archive server. Not the current public records, but the raw data logs from the Fire Information System FIS before the official report was. Filed. Michael stared at the woman in the pale blue uniform, the housekeeper who knew more about his department's data architecture than his own administrative chief. He realized the absurdity of the situation, yet felt a rising wave of desperate, irrational hope. He, Jose Slawly, retrieved his master access card, the one that still functioned despite his suspension, and placed it on the desk. You have total access, he stated, his voice regaining some of its old authority. Jennifer looked up, momentarily surprised. You trust me. I trust you because you the first person who hasn't said I am sorry, Michael replied. He's Ghazi firm. And because I literally have no other option. She gave him a fractional, serious smile. Then let's work. Michael simply nodded. He watched as Jennifer packed up her cleaning supplies, abandoned the utility cart by the door, and walked with him toward the elevator. She moved with a purpose, now no longer an invisible employee, but a focused professional who knew exactly what she was doing. As they descended into the secure basement level where the departmental servers were housed, Michael understood that this night wasn't just about saving his career. Something profound was shifting inside him. For the first time in what felt like forever, he felt the flicker of hope, not for his past, but for whatever future this quiet, determined woman might uncover. The elevator made a soft asterisk, ding asterisk, and stopped at the restricted server room. Before them stood a heavy, steel security door, equipped with biometric readers. Michael passed his card and placed his thumb on the scanner. The door hissed open, revealing the cold, humming heart of the fire department's digital infrastructure. Rows upon rows of servers pulsed with soft, blue indicator lights. The air was sterile and cold, heavy with the noise of circulating fans. Welcome to the brain of my career, Michael said, his voice laced with the lingering bitterness. Jennifer placed her small backpack on a console table and put on a pair of simple, thin gloves. We're going to give it new life, she stated calmly. But I need one thing. No one, absolutely no one, enters this room until we're done. Done, Mike agreed, pulling out his secure phone and relaying a brief, sharp order to the night supervisor. Jennifer connected her own sleek black laptop to the main console. Her gaze was immediately absorbed by the screens where lines of corrupted code and data logs scrolled endlessly. They used a very specific vector, she observed, her tone detached and analytical. The entry point was through a compromised maintenance login. Then they mapped the network and finally deployed a script that intentionally overwrote your unit's operational permits and telemetry logs. In my original logs, that's the interesting part, she murmured, zooming in on an anomaly. The engine's onboard data system, installed 5 years ago before the last department-wide software upgrade, runs on a slightly older, disconnected protocol. Michael leaned forward, his hands resting on the cool metal of the server rack. Yes, but it will take nearly 7 hours to isolate, rebuild the integrity hashes, and create new access routes. Coffee, absolute silence. Michael smiled, the first genuine smile he'd worn in weeks. Jennifer looked up at him, her lips curving into a slight, professional smile. The work began. Jennifer moved with the precision of someone who knew every nook and cranny of data structures. Michael, accustomed to leading from the front, found himself relegated to a supporting role, watching her with a respect that bordered on it. She was meticulous, patient, and completely impervious to the pressure. As the hours melted away, the silence in the server room became almost hypnotic, broken only by the constant asterisk, click-clack asterisk of her fingers on the keyboard and the deep, reassuring hum of the machines. Michael went up to the small kitchen area and brought back 2 mugs of coffee. "Thank you," she said, without taking her eyes off the monitor. "This is going to be slow, but it's working," he asked, trying to distract himself from the gnawing anxiety and the deep exhaustion. "Let's say life taught me not to quit easily," she replied, as she adjusted a line of code. "When my father was sick, I spent months researching his treatment, looking for solutions the doctors had discarded." Michael listened in silence. Her voice was calm, but the force behind her words was undeniable. "I forgot that somewhere along the line," he confessed. Jenner turned slightly toward him. At 3 a.m., the first real sign of victory emerged. The screens began to display clean access routes, restored directories, and systems reconnecting one by one. Michael whispered, leaning closer, "What no one in their command structure dared to attempt," Jennifer said, a quiet triumph in her voice. "I forced a manual restoration from the old disconnected logs and created a new, encrypted firewall around the historical data. Your operational truth was sleeping, Captain." Michael collapsed into the console chair, relief washing over him in a dizzying wave. "Don't celebrate yet," she warned. "We still need to rebuild the internal protocols and ensure they can't Jennifer nodded, already focused again. The first faint light of dawn began to creep through the ventilation ducts. At 6:45 a.m., the main console flashed a simple, glorious message. Asterisk, asterisk, telemetry restored. Jennifer leaned back in her chair, taking a deep, ragged breath. "Done, Captain Brown." Michael stared at her, almost disbelieving. "More than that," he said, a genuine smile finally lighting his face. She returned the smile, tired but satisfied. Michael let out a sincere laugh. "The first in months." "Not anymore," he replied firmly. "As of today, that changes. I'm offering you an opportunity." Jennifer looked at him, touched. "Precisely because you didn't ask for it," Michael countered. The silence that followed was filled with mutual respect, a shared knowledge that this night had altered more than the fate of a fire captain. When the first administrative staff arrived that morning, they found their decorated captain, his jacket slung over a chair, drinking coffee next to a woman in a pale blue uniform. The screens showed stable data, rising integrity metrics, and fully functioning servers. It was as if the crisis had never existed. Later, in the main office, Michael gathered the remaining key personnel. "I want to introduce you to Jennifer Miller," he announced, his voice firm and unwavering. Anthony Riuzon, the deputy chief and Michael's longtime rival, observed Jennifer with a mix of astonishment and skepticism. He asked, disbelief evident in his voice. "The same," Michael responded, without hesitation. Jennifer took a deep breath, feeling purpose return to her life after a long period of quiet desperation. As the team dispersed, Michael approached her. "Go home, get some sleep, and come back this afternoon." Jennifer nodded, still processing the monumental shift. As she left the annex building, the morning light enveloped her. She looked up at the department's insignia, She had entered as an invisible worker, but she was leaving as the architect of a major corporate rescue. The following week, the fire department annex buzzed with a nervous electric energy. The rumors about the averted disaster, the near total loss of the department, operational data, and the captain's career were whispered in every hallway. No one knew the exact details, only that a collapse had been narrowly avoided and that a mysterious woman from the night crew had somehow played a central role. Jennifer arrived shortly after 8 a.m., no longer in her blue uniform, but dressed in professional slacks and a simple but elegant blouse. A mix of nervousness and fierce determination was evident in her posture. As she navigated the reception area, some employees stared with open curiosity, others with palpable disbelief. An executive assistant approached her with a discreet smile. "Good morning, Ms. Miller." Jennifer nodded, trying to calm the slight tremor in her hands as she walked toward the elevator. She never imagined returning to this level of professional environment, especially not in the very building where she had polished floors just days ago. The elevator doors opened, and there he was, Michael, impeccably dressed in a freshly pressed uniform, waiting for her outside his office. His expression, unlike the haunted exhaustion of the previous week, was marked by a new sense of calm and focused purpose. "You're just on time," he said, his smile genuine. Jennifer followed him into the office. The key senior staff were already assembled, the financial director, the communications chief, and in a corner, Deputy Chief Anthony Wilson, observing her with a critical, raised eyebrow. Michael took the floor, his voice commanding the room. "Before we begin, let me make one thing crystal clear. The incident we suffered was the most severe internal threat in this department's history. Yet, thanks to the intervention of one person, we not only survived it, but we fundamentally strengthened our entire digital structure." Anthony frowned visibly. "And last week, Deputy Chief," Michael retorted, his voice stealing, "she saved the integrity of 2 decades of work." The murmurs rippled through the room. Some nodded with grudging respect. Others exchanged openly skeptical glances. Jennifer remained silent, her head held high. "I'm not here to replace anyone," she stated finally, her voice clear and measured. Her serious, professional tone was enough to silence even Anthony. Michael used the pause to close the meeting. "That is all. The reports on the new data integrity measures will be on your desks tomorrow, Ms." As everyone filed out, Anthony paused by the door. "We'll see how long your miracle lasts. Asterisk analyst asterisk," he muttered, without looking at her. Jennifer took a slow, steady breath, but offered no response. She had learned long ago that respect is earned through action, not demanded through words. That afternoon, Michael invited her to tour the main building. He showed her the dispatch center, the training facilities, and the financial records area. "All of this is still functioning because of you," he said as they walked through the bustling hallways. "Thanks to a bit of luck and a lot of old server hardware," Jennifer corrected him. "It wasn't luck, Jennifer. It was undeniable. Pure talent," he insisted. They walked in comfortable silence, but there was an unmistakable shift in the way Michael looked at Hera. Sincere acknowledgement that transcended mere gratitude. When they reached the IT department, Anthony was standing near his team, issuing rapid-fire instructions. Seeing the captain approach, his tone changed. "We are revising all protocols, Captain Brown," he reported. "It wasn't a casualty." "Stone!" Michael interjected calmly. Jennifer simply nodded. She knew Anthony felt displaced, and it was a natural reaction. As they walked away, Michael whispered, "Ignore him." "I'm not worried about being underestimated," she responded. "I'm worried that they don't understand the larger threat." Michael stopped short. Whoever did this knew the department's internal structure very well. Michael looked at her intently. "I don't have concrete evidence yet, but my journalist's instinct tells me yes." The ensuing days were a trial by fire. Jennifer dove deep into the department's systems with her small, hastily assembled team, redesigning firewalls, encrypting sensitive personnel information, and reviewing old access logs. Anthony, though clearly resentful, was forced to cooperate. Conflicts were inevitable. He protested one afternoon. "I can't protect the system if everyone knows how to bypass it," Jennifer countered, without raising her voice. Michael, observing from the doorway, smiled imperceptibly. This woman was By the end of the week, the results spoke for themselves. Network security had increased by over 45%, and the new protocols functioned with an efficiency that even Anthony couldn't dispute. "I admit your methods are effective," he conceded finally, arms crossed. Jennifer met his gaze calmly. For the first time, Anthony lowered his gaze. Defeated. One evening, long after the general staff had left, Jennifer was still working in her temporary office. Michael noticed the light on as he walked down the hall. He tapped softly on the door frame. "Just trying to audit a few network access registries," she said, stretching in her chair. "Wouldn't be the first time," she joked. Michael watched her in silence. There was something hypnotic in her way of speaking. No drama, no complaints, just the facts of hard work. "You're unlike anyone I've met in this department," he said finally. "Definitely good," he replied with a faint smile. Jennifer lowered her eyes, uncomfortable with the sudden softness in his tone. "I don't know if I fit in here, Michael." "That's precisely why," he insisted. There was a brief, tense silence. Then she gathered her things and stood up.